Okay, so our second presentation today is brought to us by Jacklyn from CRE-MSD, who's presenting on how Ontario has actually adapted a risk calculator.
So I wanted to thank Trevor for inviting me to present today. So my name is Jacklyn and I'm the Ergonomics Research Coordinator at CRE-MSD. And the primary focus of my role is the continuous development of the MSD prevention guideline for Ontario. So I started off my career in ergonomics in the automotive industry as an ergonomics student, and I worked at 3 different plants under the supervision of an ergonomist. So I loved seeing the ergonomic process from the initial hazard identification to completing an analysis and determining the best control. So in my time as an ergonomics student, I did use the Washington State calculator, which Rick talked about in the previous presentation, to help communicate the different solutions to their benefits to upper management. So the numbers at the time weren't specific to Ontario, but they did provide a ballpark of how much savings each intervention could be expected. And seeing the potential savings of the interventions was really critical to help get them implemented, since usually in prevention, people only see the amount that they have to spend at the beginning, and they don't always see the amount that they'll be saving long term. So then I worked in some consulting, and I did my master's in passive upper extremity exoskeletons in automotive work as well. And now I'm the research coordinator at CRE-MSD, filling in for Kim Mazzaros when she's on leave. So in this session, I'll be going over a quick introduction to CRE-MSD, the Ontario Ergonomics Intervention Cost Benefit Calculator, and then I'll be talking about our quick start guides and posters that you can use to get started on MSD prevention today. So for some background on CRE-MSD, CRE-MSD is a research center based out of the University of Waterloo, and it was founded in 2004. So it's a network of dedicated MSD researchers from different universities and institutions across Ontario. The center collaborates with workplace partners to conduct research to improve the understanding and prevention of work-related musculoskeletal disorders. So this allows us to ask better and more relevant questions to maximize their value for workplaces and improve transfer from research to practice. So CRE-MSD research and projects are all funded by a grant provided by the Ontario Ministry of Labour, Immigration, Training and Skills Development. So the MSD prevention guideline for Ontario was developed into a website in 2018 from the original booklet format. So CRE-MSD led a collaborative approach with a wide range of stakeholders to evaluate the old guideline, develop new content, and test the materials with workplaces. So some of this material we will be referenced throughout the session. Currently, we're updating this website and we'll be launching a new website in the coming weeks to help stakeholder groups find the resources they need to make improvements in the workplace. So we should be launching about mid-March, so follow CRE-MSD either on LinkedIn or on our events page to stay up to date with the most recent developments. And we host events as well to present new MSD research, including webinars, workshops, and our conference. We have position papers, with the newest paper being from Dr. Heather Johnson about MSD and psychosocial hazards. And we have resources such as fact sheets, many of which provide controls to hazards that have been identified in different sectors, along with different communities of practice that we have, one of which is the client-patient handling community. So if you're looking for resources on client-patient handling, this is a great place to look. So all of these are linked, so if you have the PDF of these slides, you can find all the links in there. So the MSD Prevention Guideline for Ontario outlines a 10-step process following the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle, or PDCA, which aligns with the CSA and ISO health and safety standards. So we created a poster that's linked on the slide here to show the commonalities between MSD prevention and health and safety programs. So the first step is to set the foundation for prevention through management commitment and policy and program development. Second and third step cover plan, which is preparing and scheduling activities. Step 4 to 7 cover do, which is executing hazard intervention cycle and providing training. And then step 8 covers check, which asks, have targets and goals been achieved through the activities? And then step 9 and 10 cover act. So that's communicating the results of the program and identifying successes and gaps for program improvement. So in this presentation, I provide a few examples of CRE-MSD resources that you can use throughout the 10-step process. So the quick start guides will help you recognize hazards in the workplace and provide tips and ideas to help control or remove these hazards, where the cost benefit calculator will help further along in the process when you want to evaluate your controls. So some background on the calculator. So CRE-MSD and WSPS sent out an informal survey to members of the Ontario Health and Safety System, asking what resources were needed to help get organizational buy-in on MSD prevention approaches in Ontario. So the responses indicated that there was a need for a tool that provided an estimate on the return on investment for implementing an ergonomics intervention to help get organizational buy-in. So we collaborated with WSPS to identify which tool to use, and then we landed on the Washington State Cost Benefit Calculator, which Rick discussed in the previous presentation. So we were able to modify it to have Ontario injury data. So I'll be highlighting the differences between the Ontario and Washington State tools, as Rick has already gone through the details of the calculator. So we started with the Washington State calculator and modified the injury data that it pulls from. So we requested sector and body region specific data from the Workplace Safety and Insurance Board, or WSIB, and added this to the calculator in replacement of the original American Injury and Cost Statistics. So as a result, the calculator looks slightly different than the Washington State calculator, as there's a couple additional drop-down menus. So first, when you're using the Ontario calculator, you'll choose the time frame that you want the injury data to pull from. So these were separated into two categories: pre-pandemic, which has data from 2018 and 2019, and during the pandemic, which has data from 2020 to 2022. So these timeframes were separated because of the way the data is organized through WSIB, and they changed how they organize the sectors in this timeframe. So when you choose the dropdown, it'll tell the Excel sheet which table to pull the injury data from. And we can look at what these data tables look like here. And this information is all available in the Excel sheet as well if you'd like to take a closer look. So the first column in the table is the class subclass information that sorts the injury data by sector and by body region. So if we look at the agriculture group, there's a total claim count per year and total cost paid for 5 different body regions over the 3 years. So the body regions that are included are the back, lower extremities, trunk, upper extremities, and then any other injuries. So the spreadsheet takes the average claim cost and claim count for each year and calculates the average cost per injury for each time period. Does this the same way for the 2018 and 2019 injury data. The only difference is how the sectors have been categorized. So going back to the first tab of the spreadsheet, you'll enter your workplace specific information after you've selected the most appropriate time frame. So you'll select your industry sector on the dropdown to pull the most relevant cost information, and then enter the number of employees that will be affected, what their average salary is, and the number of injuries for each body region that occurred in the workplace over the last 3 years. So this information is used to calculate the average annual MSD claim costs, which are tailored to your workplace. And the remaining aspects of the calendar haven't been changed from the Washington State calculator, which Rick covered in detail in the previous presentation, along with some great examples of how this calculator can be used. So to recap, the Ontario Ergonomics Intervention Cost Benefit Calculator can provide a cost benefit analysis of up to 3 interventions at once using Ontario sector and body region specific data tailored to injuries in your workplace. So the tool is a great way to demonstrate the value of ergonomic interventions and help get organizational buy-in. So along with the new website that we're developing, we're also developing this tool to be a web-based application so that it can be used in an online format rather than only as an Excel-based spreadsheet. So we hope that this will make the calculator easier to use and more accessible for a larger number of users. And that should be available in the coming months. So stay tuned for the web version of the calculator. So the next resource I'd like to share is the Quick Start Guide posters that we have. So there's 3 different versions of the MSD prevention guideline, and they were created based on different target audiences for accessibility to content that is most relevant. So research revealed that small businesses are a major underserviced community, and there's a need for separate approaches for small and micro businesses versus larger companies with systems in place. So the 3 guidelines share that 10-step PDCA process that I mentioned to MSD prevention, and they all have similar language so you can switch between them easily. And all versions are available on the MSD prevention guideline website, as well as linked on the slide. So there's 2 versions of the quick start guides based on the work environment that you're in. So the general guide is appropriate for all workplaces, and the office guideline is more specific for computer-based work. So the posters outline the best practices for MSD prevention based on reducing exposure to primary MSD hazards common across workplaces. So the front of the poster provides general recommendations on the MSD hazard controls, and the back of the poster outlines more detailed guidelines, additional information about the hazard, with an area to document notes when engaging with workers. So this slide shows the summary poster, which outlines the 6 main posters in the Quick Start Guide. So if you recognize hazards that you see in any of these posters, such as overhead work, for example, then that tells you that your workplace needs an action plan for MSD prevention. So if you're looking for ways to reduce repetitive strain injuries this month for RSI Prevention Day, or any time in the workplace, these posters are a great way to get started. So a few ways that you can use them include as guides during workplace walkthroughs and inspections. You can write observations and ideas about possible fixes for hazards on the back of the poster. You can use them as a script for safety talks. So there's discussion points right on the posters to brainstorm possible fixes. And you can post them in the lunchroom or on the health and safety board to alert workers to potential MSD hazards in their work and their relationship with pain and discomfort. So on the posters, there's 3 colored zones, green, yellow, and orange. These zones indicate different thresholds and provide guidance on next steps. So green indicates that there's no action required if tasks are not held for long periods of time, and there's no other MSD symptoms being reported. Yellow means that investigation and improvements are necessary but not urgent, and orange means further assessment or improvement is needed. So the first poster in the series is called Store It Off the Floor, and it provides guidelines on how to store objects to reduce MSD hazards. So in the poster here, you can see that the boxes stored at waist height are green, boxes stored at about knee height are yellow, and boxes stored at floor level or overhead are red, meaning that this area should be avoided. And below the image, there's a few tips that talk about how to store items, such as using tables, benches, or stands to get work off the floor and minimize bending. And then on the back of the poster, which is on the right of the slide here, there's more suggestions for maintaining back health at work and a space to write ideas to make fixes in the workplace. The second poster talks about keeping commonly used items close to the body. So when we're working, we want to keep the items we use as close to us as possible, as it reduces the amount of stress we put on our joints. So an example I like to use is if you have a water bottle or a book or something on your desk, if you hold it in that green area, you could probably do that for the whole day. But as you hold the bottle farther and farther away, it starts to feel heavier and the muscles have to work harder to maintain this position. So we want to avoid putting items far away, especially for heavy items, as it really increases the stress on the body and therefore our risk of MSD. And then the third poster talks about overhead work, or work with your hands above your head. So you want to avoid working overhead as it is a strong risk factor for injury. So a few ways that you can do this include a stool, platform, ladder, or hoist, so work is below your head or shoulder height. Use a bit extender for drills or screw guns. If it isn't possible to remove the overhead work component, choosing lighter tools for overhead work is beneficial, but it won't completely remove the hazard. The Look Straight Ahead poster is the fourth poster, and this shows the best line of sight to keep your work in. Some examples of where this could be applied is using computer screens like everyone is right now, or working with your hands on a work surface like doing kitchen prep. So you want to position your work and equipment straight ahead as much as possible to maintain a neutral neck posture. Looking down or to the side can put additional strain on your neck and can lead to pain or discomfort. So if you can't remove the hazard, you can mitigate it by pausing frequently to stretch and give your neck a break. So the fifth poster is called Get a Good Grip. This poster discusses optimal grips to maintain a strong, natural wrist position. We want to avoid tools with any sharp edges that can cause contact stress and choose the grip most appropriate for the task. So for example, if a lot of force is required, the power grip is best, which is shown in the poster. Additionally, power tools with low vibration and kickback are the best choice for the workplace. When using tools that vibrate, make sure to maintain them as older parts may cause additional vibration through the tool. And then the last poster is called Change It Up. So throughout the day, we want to avoid maintaining the same static posture during tasks. So if possible, changing your posture frequently to avoid fatigue and move your body helps us load different body parts and avoids fatiguing the same body region over long periods of time. So this could be accomplished through job rotation or in an office setting. This might look like getting up and walking up and down the stairs or getting outside at lunch to break up multiple hours of sitting. So you can also use a standing desk, which we have another poster for in the office quick start guide to do this as well. So a couple questions that I'd like to leave you with to prompt reflection after the presentation is if you can think of your answers on your own, or if you have an RSI day activity in your workplace, you can talk about these as a group, especially if you share the posters at your workplace. So if you have examples of MSD hazard controls in your workplace, so even if you haven't started on a formal MSD prevention journey yet, there are likely things you're already doing to reduce hazards in the workplace. So think about what has and hasn't worked in the past. Documenting lessons learned can be really helpful, and often what didn't work has more lessons to teach us than what did. So I hope the posters have prompted some ideas of controls that you could implement in your workplaces. And if you're thinking of implementing controls, you can use our cost-benefit calculator to compare different options. So if you're looking for more information, you can check out the msdprevention.com website, which has lots of resources for MSD prevention, including our guidelines, hazard identification tools, examples of hazard controls, posters, fact sheets, videos, and more. And then just highlighting some of the more recent CRE-MSD resources that have been shared. So we have a few new posters about the relationship between psychosocial hazards, MSD, and mental health, a poster that gives different solutions to common manual material handling hazards, and a job rotation poster. So these links are clickable in the PDF along with this presentation, so you can access them there or by searching on our website. And then we have a couple new videos as well. So we have What is a Musculoskeletal Disorder? And this is a great video that you could show at safety talks or during new hire training to introduce workers to MSD that maybe haven't heard of them before or aren't familiar with MSD prevention. And then we have the Quick Start Guide introduction video and manual material handling solution video that goes with the poster as well. And thanks everyone for listening.
Okay, thank you, Jacklyn. There's a few questions here. Are the resources available in French?
Unfortunately, right now they aren't available in French, but it is something that we've started to look into. But right now they aren't translated into 2 different languages.
Okay, sorry, I'm losing the chat because of the Slido. Not sure if this question is for you or not, but regarding the calculator, would Ontario data be representative for other provinces, such as Nova Scotia? If not, is there another way to source other provincial data?
I'm not 100% sure how similar they are. You can look at the WSIB data on, it's called the safety check. WSIB has it on their website, so you can see kind of how much each injury costs. And then if there's a similar organization in Nova Scotia that you can compare it to, you could do it that way. Otherwise, I'm not 100% sure if Nova Scotia and Ontario are that similar.
Okay, one more here. It says micro breaks, how much time and how often?
So one thing you can do is set a reminder in your calendar for like once an hour. You can get up, move around, anything that you can really remember to do. So even if you associate it with filling up your water bottle, I know some people will get a smaller one. On our sit, stand, desk poster, we do have some guidelines there. But yeah, it's more of a behavior change thing. So anything that you can associate it with, like if you have to go to the bathroom, you have to fill up your water bottle, adding a little bit of a walk in there or going up and down the stairs, that can be really helpful.
Okay, has there been any work to review the actual savings post-intervention? And have you compared it to the CBA projections almost as a validation exercise? You understand what I said there?
So in terms of the Ontario calculator, because the tool is so new, it was only released in 2023 in October. I don't think there's been any validation for Ontario specifically, but there might have been more recent studies using the Washington State calculator.
Okay, how would you suggest to motivate people to take MSD prevention sufficiently seriously?
That's a tough question. I know when I worked earlier, using the Washington State calculator was helpful to motivate people because if they couldn't see the cost, then they couldn't see the value in it. So I think using the cost benefit calculators that were presented today can be really helpful because when you're running a business, you're looking for the numbers. Like you need the numbers to see what you can do. And I think that can be really helpful